Hello, this is the 10th and last of the talks on human pathology from the medical textbook Robbins, Pathology by Robbins and Cotran. This is the ninth edition, and we'll be discussing in this last talk nutritional diseases. So the first of these will be protein energy malnutrition, and this primarily manifests in children. They cause 50% of deaths of children in underdeveloped countries. And in these patients, the BMI is less than 16 kilograms per square meter. Marasmus, proteins are depleted, the subcutaneous fat is depleted, the immune and vitamin deficiencies occur. And these are people who have generalized, basically walking skeletons if you look at them grossly. Kwashiorkor is protein deprivation, which is more severe than the caloric restriction. This is an effect of high caloric intake. Hypoalbuminemia causes dependent edema without subcutaneous fat depletion. These people generally have distended stomachs from the edema. Cachexia is seen in terminal cancer or AIDS. Cancer mediators induce lipid and protein mobilization. Vitamin deficiencies. Vitamin A maintains normal vision, cell growth, and lipid metabolism. Depletions are seen in malabsorption syndromes. You have night blindness, dry eye called xerophthalmia, and dermatoses. Toxicity of vitamin A causes headache, vomiting, stupor, weight loss, and fractures. Vitamin D is used in bone mineralization, metabolism, neuromuscular transmission. It is endogenously synthesized by photochemical reactions from UVB radiation, then converted in the liver to an active form, or you can use a dietary precursor that is converted in the liver. Deficiency states give you rickets in children, osteomalacia or bone softening in adults. The bone matrix is intact but unmineralized. The bone is weakened, and you have compensating abnormal growth characteristics. So this is a drawing of alpha-1 hydroxylase, which is you have the presence of decreased 125 vitamin D, the dihydroxy vitamin D. This is the active form. Decreases of calcium and phosphate absorption. Decreases of serum calcium and phosphate, and this has impact on the lung with PTH, or rather the thymus with or the thyroid gland. I'm sorry, with PTH being produced through the parathyroid gland, and this acts on mobilizing calcium and phosphate out of the bone, and this softens the bone, and this accelerates the process. Phosphate is lost through the kidney. This is actually a drawing of the thyroid gland, but the PTH is going from the parathyroid, which are the four of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, non-skeletal effects, beneficial broad immunological response. There's an undetermined anti-neoplastic effect. This is a benefit of vitamin D. Toxicity is called hypervitaminosis D. It causes bone formation in soft tissue, bone pain, and hypercalcemia. Vitamin C is a cofactor in amino acid and protein modification. It strengthens collagen. It is also an antioxidant agent, albeit a weak one. The deficiency leads to a medical condition called scurvy, where you get hemorrhage in the skin, gums, joints, impaired wound healing, and bone formation. The gum bleeding is a sine qua non of this. The excess, no conclusive toxic effect nor clinical benefit occurs with excessive doses of vitamin C. It is simply excreted in the urine. We'll spend the rest of the moment on obesity. Every chart you see on obesity incidence is out of date. As time progresses, the dark red becomes darker red. The yellows turn to orange, and the whites turn to yellows. But this is one such example of the BMI, the percent obese. BMI defined as greater than or equal to 30. and some nations have nicely traversed that. Even the states, such as Colorado, have gone over the required edge. This is from 2016 data. This is Colorado here, which alone had a lower prevalence of obese adults. The highest numbers are in the the Mississippi Delta states and in West Virginia. These numbers are all accelerated now. This is from 2016. The number has gotten higher over time, and some of these numbers are quite impressive, 35% with a body mass of greater than 30. This is short of doing a calculation. You can simply look up your height in feet or in inches, your weight over here, and determine where you fall on the scale, whether you're severely obese, moderately obese, overweight, normal or healthy, underweight, or severely underweight. So obesity is linked and causative for a multitude of diseases. Type 2 diabetes mellitus, coronary artery disease is deemed questionable at one point. My sense is that is definite sequelae of obesity as an independent factor. Non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, cholelithiasis, sleep apnea, degenerative joint disease, hypertensive. You can also add a gastroesophageal reflux disease to that amount, to that number. For neoplasms in males, you get increased risk of cancer in esophagus, thyroid, colon, and kidney. For females, increased risk in the endometrium, gallbladder, and kidney. Kidney is probably the most common risk factor for this, followed by esophagus. The other links are a little bit less problematic. Leptin, we're going to spend a lot of time on leptin. It's an adipokine. It's a peptide hormone which signals the adequacy of fat reserves. It is produced in the adipose tissue and released when the adipose tissue contains much triacylglyceride. It acts in the brain to inhibit feeding behavior. Much research has been done on leptin and analogous substances, and we'll be getting into that. The hormone agonist is ghrelin. Ghrelin is produced in the GI tract on empty stomach to stimulate feeding. So ghrelin and leptin have mutually opposite effects. Also, adiponectin is involved in this. So this is a good schematic here. I'll spend a little bit of time on it. Particularly, I want to focus on GLP-1. GLP-1 is the substance that has analogs now for a lot of the weight loss entities that were designed originally to deal with type 2 diabetes, but the increase of food creates a release of GLP-1, and this is used to have a feedback mechanism, and this creates a loop that causes a decrease of appetite. In other cases, you can have is leptin, which has much the same effect. These are inhibitory functions. Adiponectin and the ghrelin having the opposite effect, which increase this effect here. Leptin is 167 amino acid residues. It acts on the hypothalamus. It was first identified in mice designated as OB. Mice that have two defective copies of OB gene are designated genotype OB, and these mice are in constant state of starvation. The cortisol is increased. They lose temperature control. They cannot reproduce, and they are 3 times the weight of normal mice. Leptin disease has a disease spectrum similar to that of diabetes mellitus. There's an insulin-resistant type. The mouse diabetic gene has a defective copy, and these are called DB and DB, and these are obese and diabetic. The diabetic gene encodes leptin receptor. If the receptor is defective, the leptin signaling function is lost. Leptin receptors are expressed in the arcuate nucleus and hippocampus. The interaction helps signal appetite control in the brain. Also, leptin stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. This gives you increased blood pressure, heart rate, and thermogenesis. The complex enters the mitochondria of brown adipocytes. The uncoupling protein UCP1 forms a channel in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Protons are allowed into the mitochondria without using the ATP synthase complex. And in summation, you get fatty acids in the brown adipocytes. Those are oxidized without ATP synthesis, and the energy is dissipated as heat in a heat cycle. This schematic shows much of this process. The ventromedial nucleus and the paraventricular nucleus and hippocampus, hypothalamus, arcuate nucleus, and you get neuronal signals. And this acts on the adipose tissue directly, and you have leptin feedback from adipose tissue, creating inhibitory effects on the hypothalamus. So you get this process going to posterior pituitary, and the signals sent with the beta-adrenergic receptors with norepinephrine, and you get to the beta oxidation without ATP synthesis occurring. Heat is dissipated, and the second messenger, cyclic AMP, creates a protein kinase, and that kinase is involved with breakdown of fatty acids, which are released and going into beta oxidation, generating heat. So this is a way to break down adipose tissue without creating energy. Other features of leptin, there are two appetite-stimulating neurons in the hippocampus arcuate nucleus. Orexigenic neurons release neuropeptide Y, and this signals eating. It is elevated in starvation and also has defects in the OB and DB genes. And anorexigenic neurons also produce alpha-melanocytic stimulating hormone called alpha-MSH or melanocortin, and this signals satiety. The leptin concentration is proportionate to the fat load, and when it is low, anabolism occurs and the fat reserve is replenished. So in this schematic here, you have the muscle, adipose, liver, and with the increase of food, you get these sort of feedback mechanisms generated originally in the arcuate neurons based on signals from the organs of the body. So leptin and has opposing effects on the melanocyte stimulating hormone and the neuropeptide Y, and these are ghrelin, again GLP-1, which I call your attention to, and these are cases where you get inhibitory effects on these. Positive effects are illustrated by the upside or the green arrows. So there's a lot of feedback opposing interactions that occur with these substances: insulin, leptin, which are adipose tissues, hunger signal, and satiety signals mediated through GLP-1. So leptin, as part of the signaling cascade, is involved in the development of hypothalamic neuronal circuits. Leptin may influence these circuits during development, and leptin also shares cross receptors with interferon and growth receptors. Leptin binds to two monomers which form a dimer. These are phosphorylated on a tyrosine residue by Janus kinase, JAK. These residues bind to three proteins called STATs 3, 5, and 6. These are fat stats, and STATs is an acronym for signal transducers and activators of transcription. These complexes dimerize, they bind to and enter the nucleus, they bind to the genome, and they stimulate target genes, including POMC, which is where the alpha MSH is produced. The mitochondria increase in number, norepinephrine is produced, and the electron transfer is uncoupled from oxidative phosphorylation and simply dissipates energy as heat. And this is another schematic of that process. So leptin is a leptin monomer receptor, JAK, then produces a dimer with leptin with binding to the STAT protein. This is all in cytosol. It then enters the nucleus, interacts with the host genome, and you get a transcription of the messenger RNA and translation of the peptide hormone, and this has the cascading effect in the body to regulate weight and create dissipation as heat. The question is posed, would leptin administration help? And the answer is no, that leptin resistance and issues with downregulation occur. Many obese people have a normal OB gene. Other factors are involved. So for leptin's purpose, you adjust an animal's activities during fasting or starvation. It acts to restrict weight gain. A decreased leptin signal reduces thyroid hormone production and increases glucocorticoids, and the energy expenditure is minimized. Endogenous energy reserves are maximized. Leptin acts in the liver and the muscle to stimulate AMP-activated protein kinase, AMPK, and the AMPK regulates a broad catabolic state through feedback based on AMP and ATP concentrations. And this is our final slide in the whole series, and this is the situation where you can have first-order neurons, second-order neurons, the third ventricle, the brain, and these are part of the brains, and you have feedback mechanisms. Ghrelin, which is satiety hormone, which creates anabolic impact on the host. Behavioral effects with increased food intake, energy consumption increase. You have leptin acting in an oppositional manner to ghrelin, acting on POMC, and then getting a catabolic pathway. So the anabolic pathway builds up tissue mass, the catabolic breaks it down, and these are in opposition to each other. And again, this is the brain component right here. So all this occurs in a neural area and involves sensations of satiety that are moderated through hormonal analogs. And that's it for this lecture. Hope it's of use to you. Thank you very much. Bye.